And of course, then you'll all be asked if you want to jump and leave. And we'll give it another 30 seconds. We have 9 out of 10, so who knows how many will sign in. Apparently Kelly was the last one to make a noise, so she's now filling all of our screens. Teach
Sorry.
you to have a loud keyboard. There's an insight in there somewhere.
Duly noted. Get here early and not make a peep.
Hit that mute button fast and frequently. So anyway, welcome. Good evening. 7 to 8, always a wonderful time to spend doing something other than the 5,000 things you probably wish you could be doing. So, but anyway, welcome to Finding and Testing Key Consumer Insights. I'm Andy Smith. Just as a quick background on me, I've been doing marketing research now for probably over 30 years. Just talking with Lynn, I started eons ago for a company called Nabisco, where brand still exists, but the company doesn't. Now part of Kraft, actually split between Kraft and Mondelez. But I've worked at Hershey, I've worked at M&M Mars, worked at Kraft Nabisco. For the last 8 years, I worked at a small company many of you probably never heard of called Flowers Foods. You may have heard of our brand. So if you're familiar with Dave's Killer Bread, Wonder Bread, Tasty Cake, if you're in the Northeast area, and Nature's Own, they're one of the largest bread manufacturers in the US. Worked there up until about 3 months ago and decided into the summer to retire. So I now are no longer doing corporate work, but I'm doing some other consulting and working with a few startups, which I'm not going to lie, I do not miss all the politics that come with working with the much larger company. And it sure as heck being a lot more fun on the smaller side. So that's who I am. There's two other people that helped develop this course. They may or may not make it today. Rob Duboff, he's founder of a consulting firm called Hawk Partners. He actually also teaches a class at Harvard. He has about 30 plus years of experience in marketing also. And the third one is Karen Monacuolo, who works at A&E, and she does insights on the media side and helping with programming for an A&E network. So they may be on and off during the course of the session and in the course of the next couple weeks. Couple things we need to talk about. One is in the past, this has always been a 7-week class. And suddenly they sat there and forgot that we lose a week with Thanksgiving. So now we have 7 weeks of material crammed into 6 weeks. So I'll leave it up to you guys on how you want to handle that. And you know, some of the thoughts are we can sit there and do 2 sessions in a week. We can do 2 hours one night, or we can just skip it and we can talk about some of the things we want to talk about during the classes in free time. So I'll let you guys think about that and whether it's a discussion on Brightspace or it's an email to me, but think about what your preferences are on how we can handle that. So kind of new territory through the ARF for a loop. We weren't expecting that. But with no classes Thanksgiving weekend and with this actually happening on Thanksgiving, we lose a week. They didn't extend it to an 8th week. So we have 6 weeks to do either 6 or 7 classes. So your call. Something I think we're going to do differently in this class than what other classes do is while we take you through the research, what an insight is, and the journey from an insight to good advertising, we are actually going to have a separate section or set of videos where we're actually going to take Nature's Own and take you week by week the example of, holy cow, the business needs something in terms of communication to drive awareness and equity. And we're going to take you through the journey of selling that in, working with the agency, finding the insight to develop ads, working with the agency to develop animatics and ads, testing those, and finally, hey, here's the results. Here's what Marketing Mix showed was the results of those ads. So the journey was about 3 years ago, 2 years ago now. So still relevant. The ads you may not have seen, they've been a couple of years ago, but I really encourage you to watch those videos on whether Brightspace or if you're Bank of America, however those are being served up to you, because it really is a different perspective on kind of the class, because we're taking real world example of what's going on. The other thing, and I can't stress this enough, is I'm looking at your backgrounds. You guys have great experience and a lot different experience than I have, from automotive, financial, services, the service industry. So the more you speak up, the more everyone will get information and a different perspective out of this class. So while it's good to hear from seasoned professionals, you guys have a lot of good experiences and perspectives to share. So again, the more you guys speak up, the more everyone will get out of this class. And quite frankly, the less you'll have to listen to me. And that's a good thing. So again, participate, ask questions, bring up examples. The other fun thing about research and insights is if you ask a buttload of people what they're thinking of an insight or good research or a research plan, you're going to get a boatload of different answers. So challenges, whether it's me, Rob, Karen, if she's on the line, if we say something, challenge, let's discuss it, because there is not one way of doing it. And I assume a lot of you have taken the foundations course. Again, everyone loves to do things their way and differently. So this is not a, here's how it's done. This is really a how, here we've done it in the past and how we feel comfortable doing it. But again, speak up. You may be doing it something differently. You may have a different opinion. You may want to challenge how we do everything. As I mentioned, we developed this class about 3 years ago. So as you watch the videos, you'll know a lot of those videos are, again, 3 years old. So we'll talk about dates, upcoming classes, classes that have passed. The dates aren't relative. So just know that going in. At some point, we're going to redo the videos and kind of keep them year and day agnostic, so we don't have to worry about that. But for the purpose of this, they're still relevant. We just need to go and update the timing and the dates of classes we're talking about. They were done with the first sessions in our mind. So again, the expectations here is lots of class participation. Also, as much as you can, watch the videos beforehand. You'll get a lot out of that. The way this is set up is really the beauty of the class is the dialogue with us. Don't want to have to sit there and play the videos or play any of the examples that are on Brightspace or, again, for Bank of America that have been sent to you in the class. Let's use this as a chance to really kind of dialogue. We will having a couple guest speakers during the course of the program, so you'll get a kind of good holistic view of this insight journey. One of the speakers will be a creative who actually develops ads for the A&E network. Always good to hear kind of their point of view, because it's different from those of us in the research industry. We're going to bring a marketer who, well, if you're from Bank of America, I apologize now. He worked for Fidelity. He was the CMO of Fidelity, and he actually was the brainchild and came up with the insight behind their whole Green Line campaign. So it'll be interesting getting the perspective of an actual working marketer. And the third guest speaker is someone who works on the agency side of planners. So she's a researcher, but her whole goal is really translating insights into kind of the fodder that the creatives will use to develop good advertising. So we'll have some good guest speakers during the course of the program. So anyway, any questions on the class? and what's in store for the next 6 weeks. And again, did I mention class participation is really encouraged?
I have a one like housekeeping question. I know that I don't know if some of us might have I've got small kids. So next week for Halloween, I am not like are we able to like watch the discussions afterwards? They're being recorded, like, assuming if we have to miss some classes, it's okay.
So two things, great question, Kelly. Two things. One is it will be recorded and I will send it out to everyone. It will also be available on Brightspace. The other thing is, and you know, if you want to catch up on things you've missed, shoot us an email, whether it's Rob, myself, Karen, and we'll gladly sit there and say, hey, here's where the discussion went. Here's why, it happened the way it did. Or if you have questions different than what may have come up in the class, reach out and we will do that. You know, not working full time right now. I have plenty of time to answer those questions. So again, feel free. And looking back on it, yeah, Thanksgiving will be tough. I'm sure all of us will have doorbells being ringing in background and other issues. So it will be recorded. And if anyone wants to talk about it offline, glad to do that. No other questions. We're going to start. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I just have a follow-up. I'm in the same boat as Kelly. I have young kids as well. And I was just curious, like, how you're going to make the decision about kind of that lingering class. Like if we extend or like another week. I'm sure Kelly, like, planning ahead is like sometimes helpful. And honestly, like 7 to 8 is kind of bedtime, which I know you can't control that, but like if I need to just make sure I have care for my kids. So I'm just curious, like how that decision will be made and how far in advance we would know.
Well, I'll tell you what, give me the feedback. I will look at what you guys come up with and I will have a decision next class.
Okay.
I do know the one option we cannot do is extend another week.
Sure.
Because NYU, rather inflexible, but they shut down grading on the 8th of December. So, while extending would have been a great option, they're not allowing us to do that. So
Okay.
we'll get back to you next week. But duly noted, I did not have any say on date or time. So, the 7 to 8's kind of, right in the middle of everything for everyone. But duly noted, I'll make sure Juan, the ARF, and NYU gets that feedback.
Sort of
Yep,
related to that is if we have to either do an extra class, during another, I believe we have homework each week where we have to do assignments. So we're going to have an extra assignment. So we're going to have like a double week. Is that how I'm taking that?
Question.
No, I won't do that to you. We all have full-time jobs. I know the NYU is very strict on all the rules about assignments coming in on time and not missing stuff. But the reality is we all work. And so we're not we'll figure out what assignment we'll skip. We'll miss one. Even next week assignment is, it's something really easy. It's, pick a brand and that's the brand you guys are going to work with for each class, from finding an insight to creating a marketing research plan. So none of the assignments are going to be overly taxing. Even the final. So your final exam is really going to be, what did you get from this class? And outside of class, how are you going to try to use insights in your everyday job? So none of this is going to be like, oh my gosh, I need to stress out over this type of assignment. So, again, we all work and we don't need any more stress in our lives. So the whole idea is I want to make sure you guys learn as much as possible while keeping your life as stress less, not going to say free, as possible. So if there's no more questions, well, let's add some stress to everyone's life and we'll do introductions. And why don't we go alphabetically by first name? unless there's someone who's like, wants to volunteer and, pick me, but. And please don't have me have to go through the alphabet so I can figure out whose first name is first.
I think it's me.
Probably a D, yes, one of two.
Um, do you want us to just go over our name, where we work, and
So give me your name, give me where you work, your research experience. Part of that is I want to get a feel for if you've never had insight experience before, feedback we give you, how we look at the assignments will be different than someone's been doing it for 5 years. And then what you want to get out of the class. So those kind of things, your name, your job, and what you want to get out of this.
Okay. My name is David Delvo Jr. I currently work at Best Buy. I am on their enterprise research team. I mainly handle the creative and campaign effectiveness. I also kind of dabble in some of the industry insights. So our marketing leadership team is very interested in like retail media networks in that space. And I've been doing that for the past 3 years. Before that, I actually worked at the USA Today as a customer success manager. So I just ran digital advertising. So I switched because of the fact I wanted to know the why behind that customer reason why you'd be advertising in a certain way in certain places. And I took this class because of the fact my role is pretty much a combination of taking a bunch of insights from other teams and combining it into like understanding how did the creative and campaign work with those. So like at Best Buy, they split it up. So like there's a category team, there's a brand health tip person. And then so combining that into how well the campaign did from my perspective is really important. And so I'm trying to become better at combining all of that and pulling in the best insights for our teams to use.
Great. It's interesting is USA Today totally disrupted by the internet, and let's not talk about where print's going. Best Buy, on the other hand, every other retailer has been destroyed by the internet. And again, back to the importance of a strong insight, they've managed to rise above that and still stay relevant. Better to be Best Buy than Kmart, that's for sure.
Yes.
Next. Anyone?
Hi, I'll go ahead. My name is Lena Kurian, so I work for Bank of America. Nice to see Lynn and Justine on the line as well. So I work in B2B marketing research, and I support small business all the way up to large corporate clients.
Great. It's interesting. A lot of people talk about research and insights and how it's different for B2B than it is for consumer. And if you get to the heart of it, it's still dealing with empathy, and a good insight is making someone's life easier. It doesn't matter if it's a consumer or they're purchasing for business to business. So pretty sure everything in this class will be relevant for B2B also. So.
Well, I'm interested in understanding what really is an insight, because we have vendors speak of it, but when we talk to our business partners, they don't see it as that. So
and here, kind of the dirty truth is most people don't know what an insight is. For years, I've been an Ogilvy judge for the ARF, and one of the submission criteria is what is the insight behind the campaign. And it's amazing how many insights are 75% of people said they do this. And one of the things we will discuss in the class is an insight is not a number or a statistic. It really is a tension in people's lives that you can help overcome, whether through it's like an innovation, a new product, or an ad. So it's a lot more than that. And the next part of the discussion, when we get into art and science, will hopefully get a little more light into what an insight is and the difference between an insight and data and information. So thank you.
Thanks.
Next.
I'll
We
pop
tend
in.
to, I think we forgot all the J's, but that's okay.
Yeah, I feel like alphabetical order is moot at this point. But my name's Kelly Dame. I am associate director of research within our research team at the ad agency VML. So I'm based in Kansas City. It's also good to see some familiar faces from the last class that we were in. I thought we'd have a little bit more of a break, and then I'm like, oh, here we are a week later, back in it. But I the reason why I'm taking these courses is I had kind of a whole other professional life in TV news journalism and made the switch 7 years ago into advertising. And so it's been kind of interesting having like a journalism, storytelling, reporting, and coming up with insights on different stories every single day and sharing them in a concise way. And so I really love just the aspect of the job of the storytelling and the research that we're doing. And so it's been I've been specifically with the agency for 7 years and newly with research within the last 2 to 3 years. So really just confirming what I think I should be doing in my day-to-day job. It's all trial by fire, as I'm sure everyone understands. And so just getting a little bit more validation of the work that I'm doing and being a better storyteller is ultimately the goal. So I currently am working on Wendy's and Coca-Cola, but then also ad hoc all work across different client needs across our portfolio.
Great, thanks. The other J.
Yeah, I can go next. Even though I'm the last J. You can't see my full name, but I am Justine Corbett and I work for Bank of America. We had a reorg about 6 months ago, which drastically kind of changed the scope of work for me specifically. But I work within our analytics modeling and information group. I was kind of selected to be part of our insight strategy team. And while insight is in the title of our group, we don't necessarily do insights. Essentially, what we were brought together to do is to be the face of our group, AMI, and to help. Oh, sorry, my computer went dark. We were brought together to be sort of the liaison between all of the different groups within AMI. So if you think about like automation, reporting, data enablement, a dedicated analytics team, so that when business partners came to us with, an analytical ask, we could help coordinate the efforts among our broader team. Whether that meant, leading them to like a tool within the analytics organization that could help answer their question. Tool, and when I say tool, I mean things like dashboards in Tableau or MicroStrategy, or coordinating efforts of building a new report, making sure we have the correct data, working with research to understand like what the needs are and how we can communicate the results of the research. I've had a lot of focus in the brand space. So when you think about like, you've probably all received like a survey about like how you feel about a certain brand. So like brand favorability, brand consideration, brand awareness. I actually was responsible for building our dashboard to communicate those results. And it's interesting because you say like, and I think one of the slides that was shared before class is like all the definitions you get for an insight. And, it really is true. It's like kind of depends on the perspective and the person. So my goal in this class is just to kind of build on my analytical and data expertise and just gain a better understanding of like how to draw insights and kind of what that means depending on the audience that you're talking to.
Great. It's interesting is a lot of the participants in this class in past years have been on the more data analytics side and tend to think, well, I just need to know what an insight is. I don't, I'm dealing data. I don't actually have to come up with insights. And I find it interesting because having managed the marketing mix modeling for both Hershey and Flowers Foods, that's the area that insights is needed most, and really good insights. And this is where you're going to discover your job's going to be beneficial, because insights come from taking data from all kinds of different places, some are mostly unexpected, and finding that nugget in there that no one thought about. And the more you can do it and think that way, the easier it is to find those insights. So if you're in a job where you're seeing what everyone else or a lot of other people are doing, you probably have an easier time or a better chance of coming up with some interesting insights that will impact the business than many others who are just dealing in one data set. So great, thanks.
Mhm.
No, and sorry, I assume I'm the first J on the list, but I can't see the full list of participants right now. But my name is Jacqueline Hudak, and I work at Jaguar Land Rover in the marketing department. I'm the digital lead for the US, so I oversee the websites for all of our brands. I do not have any experience with insights besides taking the foundations course where we started learning about that. But I think that this course will be really valuable for my job because it, a huge responsibility is making sure that we have the best experience possible for our clients when they're on the website. And more of that has been leaning into the neuroscience behind that and looking at the data and then trying to come up with these trends and insights. So this will really hone my skills in doing so.
Great. It's one of the things I find fascinating about research as a field is just over the last decade, how much has changed. And 10 years ago, no one was talking about behavioral economics. No one was talking about neuroscience, and definitely no one was talking about AI. So it's really gotten to the point where people have been doing this for a long, long time, no longer have that big advantage of experience. Because while some of the principles have stayed the same, a lot of what we know about what makes a really good ad work, how the brain interprets data or creates memory, has changed dramatically. Learning stuff, putting people in like an fMRI machine on how memory gets absorbed and is processed is really changing how we're looking at insights, looking at advertising, looking at media. So if you're new to the field or you've been doing it 30 years, you're really kind of all in the same place, because so much of it is kind of new learning. And it's not I read a textbook 30 years ago. I've been doing that playbook for 30 years, so I'm experienced. No, because a lot of those original textbooks on how like a brand marketing funnel works are being proven incorrect. So fascinating time to be starting in this field, because if you want to have this, curiosity, thirst for knowledge, it's easy to get up to speed or pass where a lot of people that have been doing this field for a long time, where they are in terms of, understanding how marketing and advertising works. So next.
All right, I think I'm up next. You guys hear me?
Yep.
All right, good. Sometimes my mic doesn't work. It switches from, but anyways. So my name is Jared Oliver. I work for Ocean Spray. I work on the advanced analytics and modeling team under the strategy and insights umbrella. I do a lot of kind of heavy data modeling like Andy kind of does. I do some MMM stuff. I do control store tests, elasticities, things like that. One of the challenges and one of the reasons I think this class can be very, very beneficial for what I do is, like Andy said, pulling out those insights and kind of adding color to the data, adding those insights to the data that kind of help the story along and help the brand units kind of use what I'm doing in a more kind of well-rounded way. So.
Right, and that'll be a big part of the discussion, because it's funny, so much of marketing mix modeling is here's your lift, here's your ROI, and what's really the void is the understanding of how people's media habits are changing And
Right.
what does that mean for the future?
Yeah, something I was thinking about was, so we do a lot of different campaigns. We target like all, we use different different products. Like we have our zero sugar, CJC, things like that, and some pop better than others. So really kind of being able to pull out those insights about why some campaigns work better than others depending on what product we're featuring, I think would be game changer.
And a lot of times it's not the media or placement. It is the insight that went into making a good ad.
Yeah.
And the other thing we'll touch on, there's an awful lot of luck that goes into getting a good ad. No one ever likes to talk about that though. So now you in Cape Cod?
I am. Yeah, I live right off the Cape on South
Okay.
Coast. Yeah.
I love it there 4 to 5 months out of the year.
Yeah, we all do.
Okay, and I've totally lost track of alphabetically where we are, so I'm
I
relying on
think
you guys.
I'm next. I'm Lynn Burzak. I am another of the B of A people, except I work on the Merrill Lynch side. I've been Merrill Lynch before Bank of America acquired Merrill Lynch, so 20 plus years. So going back to the learn on the job, and things have changed dramatically over the last number of years. I've been in research the whole time, and at that point it was all learn on the job, do things. And my role is relatively unique. I spend a lot of my time doing research for and among our financial advisors. So it's not product, it's not client facing, it's very much understanding what FAs think about things internally, externally, etc. So it's clearly the same type of techniques, but it's from a very different perspective. I don't do ad research, for instance, but I do talk to FAs about the communications and how they talk to their clients, and then create things to help them talk to their clients and do their job. So it's a different perspective than a lot of other people have. I've never done any consumer product goods in my career at all. So this is all very new to me, between this and the advertising.
Great, welcome.
I think I'm up. My name is Mike Curley. I'm also with B of A, and I'm a quantitative analyst in our analytics group. I have a pretty unique job to where I specialize in conversion rate optimization and experience design testing. And the team that I'm on, we're called Digital Insights, and we really lead A/B and multivariate creative testing and optimization work across the enterprise. So we're responsible for optimizing landing pages for research pages if you're on our .com site or marketing landing pages. We're also responsible for optimizing different marketing containers within our site. So if you go to our homepage, you see specific ads and different creatives and things like that. And the fun part about our job is we don't just say the why or the data behind what we're seeing as far as our test results go, but we're also responsible for giving folks the why and the insights into why we're seeing specific changes and why we make specific suggestions to improve sales or improve our key performance metric that we're optimizing for. So I think one of the biggest things I'm looking to get out of this course is just to learn something new. I'm always open to learning something new.
Great, and it's interesting is the research and the understanding that goes into developing an ad is not that much different than what goes into a website, a landing page. I've done some work on e-commerce and brand landing pages, and it's very similar to developing a good ad. Having that insight makes a difference, and then it's all about really attention. Am I standing out? Am I differentiating? Is it relevant? And a lot of the tools, especially we just mentioned the neuroscience tools, a lot of the tools that are used in advertising can be used on understanding effective web pages, whether it's eye tracking or and we'll get into the different like EEG or biometrics, but we can now sit there, whether it's an ad or a web page, find out what people see and does it excite them? Does it bore them? How do they react to it without asking questions? Because in the next couple of weeks, you're all going to get bombarded with how polls are faulty because people don't tell the truth. And again, what we're seeing in a lot of these neuroscience and other techniques, there's ways of getting around that that makes the job absolutely fascinating. For various reasons, we don't know what we want to buy next year or next week or next month. But based on how your reactions and your facial expressions, I can get a good feel for whether you're reacting positively, negatively, or just eh. And that's a good indicator on whether you're going to buy in the future or not. So a lot of interesting stuff in that field going on. So I think one more, two more.
Yep. Hi, everyone. My name is Sharon. I'm a research analyst at the NADA's Ad Solution team. I had a background of physics, then I switched to market research, and I've been with NADA for 3 years, around 3 years now, and this is my first job, so I'm pretty new to the industry. And my job involves managing the entire spectrum of a brand lift study. So starting from survey development, testing, field monitoring, dashboard setup, data analysis, and presentation of the results. And more often than not, when I present the results, that's when I get the questions. Okay, I see what you're saying, but what more can you tell us? What more insight can you tell us? And unfortunately, like my role is actually limited to telling what's, and we have like very limited visibility towards the whys and knowing the insights. So, and I've seen clients trying to manipulate the results to fit their story, and those are the things that I've been seeing. So I thought like maybe having a course on what an insight is and what are the things that you need to form an insight would be pretty useful.
And it's interesting is as modeling gets more accurate, the more data you can put in there, the better the output. I know haven't done it at Flowers at Hershey. We were able to put copy test scores. So how well did an ad test into the marketing mix modeling? So now we were getting, not just the media placement and the spend, but was it a good ad? And as ads test better, what is the impact on ROI and lift on that? So again, back to the more data they can get in your hands, the better your insights will be even from a lift and an ROI perspective. Great. And good luck with the career. I think it's fun.
Yeah, it was.
All right, I think I'm the last one. My name's Taylor Grun. I'm also a research analyst at Dynata, like Sharon. So I design and manage the survey projects, and then we'll analyze the survey data and generate research reports. So we're key to providing insights to the clients about their certain survey or brand.
Great. Well, welcome. One of the questions I asked everyone to start off the class was whether you thought an insight was an art or science. And right now, I don't know if it's a hedging bets or people really believe, but the vast majority of you are it's a mix of art and science. I think it can be a mix of both. I'm a strong believer that you can't have a good insights with science alone. I do believe you can have a great insight doing art alone. So probably a different take than everyone else. But I would love to hear what everyone's thoughts were on, again, art, science. If you thought of like a great ad, and I'm sitting there, I'll actually call on people if I have to. But I was going through some of the examples you sent, and curious if you think about the examples, does that kind of reinforce your thinking of, a combination of both, or would it have you rethink thinking about art versus science? And then the other thing I'm going to throw out there is in 6 weeks, we will not have this discussion again, but I want you to think about as this class goes on, does your opinion of the combination of art versus science change?
Well, for me, this is Lena. So, my business partners, just because of what I do, it's a lot of satisfaction research and like driver stuff. I think they want something rooted in science, but they appreciate the art. Just like if I do regression modeling, it is math, but at the end of the day, you have to put some art to it.
So here's the dirty truth in business that makes insights tough. Is insights are often emotional, warm and fuzzy, feelings, empathy, not words that you hear business leaders and people in management talking about. Which is why, and I can't remember if it's this or the next class, the video actually addressed one of the problems with selling in insights is they tend to make people uncomfortable because there isn't a hard number about it. It's 70% believe this insight is important. It really is all a feeling. So we'll get you there. Trust me.
Yeah,
Don't know if we can get the
this-
people you work with there. And you know, it's not easy, and I can guarantee you, anyone that's been doing this for a while has the same frustrations of most marketers, management teams love dealing with facts because it's indisputable sometimes.
Right.
So
Yeah.
again, insights aren't.
I do a lot of qualitative work, so I tend to think of it more on the art side based on facts, or based on more empirical data from research numbers, but I tend to look at it more of the why and the pieces that fit together to develop a story as being the insight and what's behind the numbers. So like I said, I have kind of a unique role. I talk to FAs a lot. So I see data and I know what they're telling me, and trying to marry those two things is more of an art to put the whole story together versus X% said this, X% said that. But if you look at it, it's a deeper level than that.
Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I feel like it's based on, this is Justine, by the way. Some of it's, I think, based on like your role, like where you work, like where you sit within an organization, because like while Lynn might work with a lot of qualitative, like I'm more on the quantitative side. And so everything is sort of driven by data, like data collection, building models. I actually have worked with MMM and MTA, and I do think that there is an art to it. And I think the challenge that we see the most is that, you know, business partners come to us with questions, and, you know, they're asking us for insights, but they already have in their mind what they want to hear. So bringing art to them can be challenging because they want to see the numbers that back it up. So kind of like you said, like you don't hear a lot of like business leaders, executives like talking about the art side of it because they have to back it up with a number. But I know, like when I answered it, like I think it's a combination of both, and some of that's because of my role, but also like just kind of how I see it working together.
It's interesting is the quote that I absolutely love, and it's on both the syllabus, the course syllabus, and description of the course, but researchers seeing what everyone else sees and thinking something different. And the other thing I think that makes insights so tough in corporate settings is the best insights are incredibly obvious after they're seen. And, you know, to me, I'm a big believer that an insight is all about tension and solving that tension. So a lot of times when I'm serving them up, I serve it up. And an example from the bread world is I love the bread you buy in the bakery, but it just either goes stale too soon or I don't want to use it the day I buy it. Wouldn't it be great if there was bread that was, you know, bakery fresh, but lasts longer? And I don't know if you're familiar with like the brand Libre or Essential. It comes in a package that doesn't let air in. Put it in the oven for, 5 minutes, you bake it and it's like fresh bread. But the insight there is really that tension of everyone loves that baguette you buy at a bakery. It's just, it's stale the next day. Or if I want a baguette today, I have to go out and get it. I can't just store it. So how do you come up with, from an innovation perspective, that, bread that meets that tension? We'll put it in packaging that doesn't let air in so it doesn't go stale. Another one I had the pleasure of working on was Glade. And it's kind of interesting when people, when your house smells, what do? You light a candle, you use an air freshener. But the biggest thing people do is they just open the window. And from you can kind of get that from a quant study, right? An ANU, what do you do if your house smells? Oh, open the window 80%. But why? I want to let the fresh air in. And you can't get that from a quant study. That comes from either qualitative or going into people's homes and watching their behavior. And so what Glade did is they took that and they developed a whole bunch of new fragrances like clean linen. A window became part of their icon and their package. All their imagery and ads showed laundry on like a clothesline to remind people of Glade is bringing the outside in, the freshness in. So it's interesting because, again, we gravitate towards those numbers, but that tension, hey, I love this, but it just doesn't work. It's hard to convey that in a business setting because it is so unique. From an innovation perspective, one of my favorite insights, if you've seen the SUVs where if you stick your foot out, the back door opens. There's no way that would have come from a quantitative study or data. That comes from watching people that own, SUVs. What are they doing? They're walking out of Home Depot or Lowe's, walking out of Walmart, walking out of the grocery store, and their hands are full and they're struggling to get the stuff in the car. How do I solve that tension? I have this big car that handles a lot of stuff, but I just can't get it in the car. Hey, look, we're going to make it so the door automatically opens when you need it to. So to me, that's where I think the art really can come in, is talking to people, going into their home, watching them as they experience your service, your product, and seeing where that tension is, where they struggle, things that maybe they can't even convey. What I really love about the door opening automatically is everyone has experienced that. And one person thought of it, and afterwards you go, well, duh. It's just so obvious now. But, until, 3 years ago, no one thought of it. So
I also
Kelly,
felt in the art camp too, where, you think about the way I was thinking about scientific is an if this then kind of scenario. And as I'm looking through, and I think I kind of was on the art camp, and then as I dove more into the materials and different, advertisings and insights, I fell even more into art. And especially like when you look at what is an insight, one of the things is requiring a leap of interpretation. And I think that leap is something that's so inherently reliant on your mind and the way you're thinking about things and how you can creatively bring something to light. And so I think, like I said, I started to lean stronger and stronger more towards the art side. And I chose the Fearless Girl statue from State Street Advisors, where you think about how brand and consumer and culture have to come together to, and I don't think it has to be an equal mix of the three. I think, one may probably flex larger than the others, but thinking about a time when it came to light in 2017, when the Me Too movement was starting to ramp up, we were in, there was just like a lot of political rhetoric, and it was a time when the moment was ripe where that kind of data of, X amount of women-led companies are more successful, where that could really shine in a way I feel like that only the Fearless statue insight could in that moment. So, and I think it's certainly just a craft of getting there.
And you know, I think all good insights are grounded in either a combination of being human or culture. And culture changes, which is what makes it absolutely fascinating. You know, one of the things I think when you were writing about the Fearless Girl, you mentioned about the percent of, well, I guess it wasn't even the percent of women in leadership positions in finance companies, but it was about the companies that did have women on the board perform better than women companies that did not. And that's not the insight. To me, the insight is the girl standing at the bull, staring it down. And you think about the culture that, you know, people have, you know, finance bros. It's almost a joke about the typical Wall Street guy. And I think the, you know, the tension there is we can be as brave as you are. And it shows up in performance. The other one I think is brilliantly on culture. And Jacqueline, I think it was your example, was Dove Real Beauty, where, you know, 20 years ago, you probably couldn't have done that. But now with everything about perfection on the internet, it was absolutely just perfect timing, the cultural moment with the insight of how people feel when day in, day out, bombarded with perfection, when no one lives in, you know, that kind of world. We all have issues and are time pressed, mind pressed, and everything else. It's just kind of, you know, perfect culmination of how people were feeling.
Yeah, and
Anyone
I
else?
thought
Go
that
ahead.
that was an interesting one. And I know that I said from my answer, it was creating an insight was both an art and a science. But I feel like for that one, that that was an insight that could have leaned more on the art side. I think that just like being in society and knowing that it's not necessarily something that you would have to quantify with the data, but I'm sure that it was, but yeah, I thought that that was a good one.
And that's where, you know, you could never have that in a study unless you actually went out and talked to people and heard people coming up. There's no way you would sit there and say, you know, let's add in our ANU tracker what percent of people are dissatisfied with seeing models in their ads. The more you get out there and talk to your target, experience with your target, shop with them, you know, depending on your product, you know, driving with them, banking with them. You know, we used to sit there and eat chocolate with people all the time at Hershey, and how it was, you know, mood enhancing. And for, you know, some people it was a pick-me-up, it was therapy, it was a drug, sex, drugs, rock and roll, and chocolate. It's really, you really have to sit there and experience the product with people to get a lot of those kind of deep insights. Other one I had the experience of working on eons ago is, you know, Snickers, and you're not you when you're hungry. So no one ever in a survey put down, I do stupid stuff when I'm hungry. But when you talk to people and day to day, and it's like, you know, well, how does Snickers work with hunger? Well, it's got multiple tastes and multiple textures. It eats like real food. And then you start talking to people when they're getting hungry and how their behavior changes. And you kind of make this connection of, well, Snickers can be more than a candy bar. For these people, it can actually do something different than, say, Reese's or Hershey Cup gummy bears. It can actually get into food space because how you eat it. So anyone else?
Yeah, hey, this is Mike. I initially said that, I think that deriving an insight is more of a science, than an art. And I think listening to a lot of the responses, it really depends on your use case, and how you're going to be driving the insight and the purpose that you're driving it for. But I think like working in finance as an example, a lot of people like to look at the hard numbers and the hard data, but looking at that data in and of itself is not very meaningful. You need to get down to the why we're seeing those numbers and the impacts that they have, and that involves a lot more of a creative mind than an analytical mind. So kind of thinking things both logically and emotionally, I think that's really how you derive a great insight. But I thought that it leaned more towards the scientific side, especially in today's world where if you work for a really large company like Bank of America, you're having to take a lot of different data sources and combine them all together just to get down to the base level insights that you're trying to derive. And that's very scientific. So
We'll ask you again as the course goes on. The one part I'm definitely going to agree with is the more data sources, the better the insight. But numbers, it's really seeing something in those numbers that no one has ever seen before, and two, giving them empathy, emotion, and again, resolution of a conflict. And it's hard to do that without being very personal with people. And, you know, the numbers will give you an idea of where to look. It'll give you an idea of you're on the right track, but it'll probably never give you that really powerful insight that'll come up with, you know, a great new product or a great new ad.
exactly.
One of the interesting speakers we've had in the past, and he was actually the CMO when I was at Hershey, Peter Horst, and the data they had is and I apologize to my Bank of America friends, but all the data said that people really just don't like their banks. But what they did like was Sally, their individual banker, who, when they went into the branch, they spoke with and like. And that was kind of the insight they used to, and I think it is it Citi that's doing the, they kind of have it's like a Starbucks third place where you go in and they offer you, is it Pete's Coffee? And
I think that's Capital One.
Capital One.
Yeah, they have one of those by my house.
So, but that was the insight behind that is if I can get you in and experience the people, you like it. If I just get you thinking about the bank, less so.
I think that's like a great example. I think what you're talking to about, I didn't write this in my post because it just kind of came to me at this moment, but at Best Buy, we're going through brand refresh is what we call it. But it kind of all started with this, data and pieces of showing that tech has really kind of lost its sparkle. It's not new. It's around you every day. But after diving in and doing some qualitative as a team, we kind of had this like moment of like, it's not the tech that's bringing that sparkle. It's not what people are focusing on. It's what they are doing with it. And I think that's where I'm starting to lean a little bit more towards art. Because like we always now use there was a person that was talking to us that had an automatic cat feeder. And she kept saying the delight she had that she could sleep in 30 minutes longer because she didn't have to get up to feed her cats. And so like that piece of it kind of inspired like taking your tech to the next level is kind of how we're focusing on it, is more of that emotion that's tied to the human part of it. And the insight there is just to kind of, it's no longer about the tech, it's about the person. And I think that's kind of where our whole rebranding is kind of going with, because it's more about we're trying to become more central on the human aspect instead of like, oh, it's tech and the numbers behind it, because that's kind of the piece of where we've always been going in since even when I started, it was a lot more focused on numbers and data, and a lot of our leaders still focus on that. They want the proof behind it, but we are kind of, my manager and I have been kind of pushing for them to even just sit in the calls with us when we have qualitative, so they get to see that art of it, is it's not just a number and this is what they're saying, but this is actually what they do and what they actually are doing with their lives.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of my other favorite ad campaigns, and it won with Ogilvy a couple years ago, and it broke every rule that you would expect advertising to have. But the whole Cheetos showing the orange on the fingers, and whether it's licking the fingers, or I think their first ad was, you know, the supermodel walking down the street with the orange handprints on her butt. They have another one, a print ad that was like, ever wondered what inspired self-driving cars? And it's really interesting because in food, you know, again, back how things have changed, you always sat there and said, well, you never want to show food as messy or in a bad light. What they found out, they actually put people into an EEG or put an EEG headset on people and had them eat a bag of Cheetos. And eating the actual Cheetos was not the peak experience. It was licking the fingers when it was done. And so they took the chance and said, well, if the most pleasure of eating Cheetos is that end licking the fingers, what happens if we play that up? And that has been kind of their most successful campaign ever. And you know, yes, science was able to come up with the licking the fingers, but really there was an art to, let's find out what is going on there. What is it beyond just the cheese and the taste that we should be talking about? And then the leap of faith to sit there and play up the most frustrating thing about your product and do well is the hardest. Again, back to getting people to buy into an insight is often the hardest part. So, any final thoughts from anyone as we wind up? Cool. Well, those of you who have to put kids to bed, go do it. Appreciate you joining. I owe you an answer on how we fit week 7 into 6 weeks, and I'll have that for you next week. And appreciate everyone speaking up and look forward to the next 5 weeks. So thank you very much. And again, if you guys have questions or anything else, feel free, shoot me a email, whatever. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye.